I'm a female rebel, can't you tell? Bang on the dashboard, just shift a nail. Lean out the window, that's when I get.
So now, this triangulate, circle drawn around it. And you got this on the front on logo. Circle around a triangle, concentric circle around a triangle. You've got you've got what you might get fed a bunch of shit about, you know. We Freemasons began as stonemasons and built the pyramids. The Moses story discusses quite well, I mean, to lead a bunch of Egyptian slaves out of Egypt, make us 10 commandments on stone, smash the stone tablets, and order the suicide of all of the Egyptian slaves, then no, it's doubtful these stonemasons build the pyramids on that respect. Mark's Gospel gets an unfair question in the Gospel of Mark, chapter 12, as the accusatory question, "Are you the king of the Jews?" As an inappropriate question to ask the Jews as a conquered people, not running an independent monarchy. And then the response then being, well, you said it, not well, you asked me, followed by a yes or a no. So there was no confession to an unfair question, because you don't get to say with no duchess, duke, prince, princess, king, queen, king. You don't get to ask. And a conquered people, you don't ask amongst the conquered people, are you the slave of the slaves, is perhaps a more appropriate, would have been a more appropriate question for the time. Now, because this Genesis business is still being believed in, people are getting said to have had municipal in relation to their own person than another, or more. Conflicts that weren't resolved, weren't recognized to conscience, were permanently sickening, and weren't outgrown or overcome. As essentially what they mean by representing in the part of how they talk about their idealism surrounding genes. They targets knowing about targeting of step families is because, well, gene expression wouldn't stop gene recession and expression, and the to and fro wouldn't stop and start without the person dying. If a step family wasn't part of a genetic makeup of a person. Now I might have to be right back. Now, so you've got 70 to 90% of Mark's Gospel copied in the original language in which it was written, Koine Greek. 70 to 90% duplicated in Matthew and Luke's Gospels. Now, with added content thereafter to bolster the amount of text in Matthew and Luke. Now, either way you go about it, without the only excuse for why, and it's also, when you think about it, the only justification really for why a lot of attention, so much attention was invested in the name of Jesus in terms of all these Gospels, Apocrypha, or what are called the canonical Gospels now. But what's known to have been a fixate, as in a non-variant, with the was it? Yeah, it was at a king. It could be by conversation between a king of one castle and a king of another castle, to say, well, extend your land to our land, and we'll marry a daughter into your palace. You marry a niece, one of your nieces, one of your cousins into our palace. So that's interbreeding, but that's not built on interbreeding. That's inbreeding would occur. It's the only psychological justification to account for why the Genesis story originated, and it's also for pure bloodlines, dogmas, and for forced weddings, which occurred in the Bronze Age, and for now. So either way, while that's the fixate, then you also have on top of that they are idealistic. So you might have while the kingdom were practicing the inbreeding, they believed in it, in that it was a good practice to practice, but they told the story in a very daft form of concealment that did nothing but account for the biological anomaly of missing rib on one side of the male rib cage. Now, for either way you want to play it, to say that ideology and ethics spur from the existence, that the axioms are the existence of these supernatural beings, and they're all male. That homosexuality is all allowed, but yet these male beings are to be thought to be watching over every intercoursal sex act, to be the even during fertilization, the woman, until the discovery of the ovum, wasn't thought to have any genetic or bloodline investment made on her behalf into the offspring and the makeup of the offspring. It was exactly analogous to a farmer scattering seed in dirt, and I guess throwing babies against stones, like pulling weeds. So when you think of Moses smashing his tablets to order an Egyptian slave mass suicide, because they were to be seen to have hugged a golden calf, you might want to ask, well, could there have been some progressive indicators on Moses' behalf to have made those Egyptian slaves too frightened at the time? And if Moses wasn't empathetic enough to understand it, was what oceanic wall construction after they'd built the pyramids. Was that what threw them off? While being deprived of drinking water, and it's just. So yes, I talked about a two-gradient curb that involved the introduction of more speech, more politically challenging speech. Then certainly a member of a conquered people had to act, and that would even so until the structure of a monarchy, be it overly known to the slaves, the conquered by their conquerors, a monarchical structure with all its titles would not be a formidable, legally bearing, in modern terms, legally bearing charge to accuse someone of as a predicate to proceed to go on to proceed with their execution. So now, and in addition to that, you have that that he did not answer yes nor no. He said, "Well, you said it," which could mean it could mean arrange things. I've heard people speak of me in a fashion like this, but I know to be gossiped by your standards. I know Jesus had no reason. We have every reason to think Jesus had no reason to think that this question, "Are you the King of the Jews?" was going to result, particularly with the way he responded to it. Incomprehensibility of the question is even allowed by him saying, "Well, you said it." Now, but it is not this chapter alone that is, as I say, it's all of Mark, and it's known that the 16th chapter of Mark is a disclosed footnote interpolation, not found in the oldest and best manuscripts, and that this is made disclosed to the public in all Zondervan Bibles. Now, at least. So Mark's was the first. It did not contain any kind of claim to a resuscitated corpse rising from the dead. So now we have an arguable question to look at that I think, well, with this, I'm more trustworthy towards this dating scale from 70 AD to 95 AD, with John being written the latest in 95 AD, Matthew and Luke in 85 and 80, while in possession of Mark's. But the other one is, well, what if John's were the written first? Now, you cannot have Mark and John. Put the two of those together, and you were looking at such two very distinct books that you're going to say no. Compare the repeated content from Mark's in Matthew and Luke, and you're going to read in these original symbols that even if you were to have the same eyewitness, like even if these were to be said to have been on the same days, the same dates occurring, these journalists would write with different words. They would pick different words. They wouldn't have it verbatim, copying the exact same symbols. So where the differences bear out and make it tougher to pick are where we read them translated into the English. But the fact that they placed Matthew's as the first in the contents is obstruction of injustice via table of contents. This attention given attributed to the man behind the myth, behind the story. You know, see, what we can rule out is, well, that which violated physical laws as we understand them today. Obviously, we can eliminate them more rule them more out of our consideration than can we testimonial embellishments. In terms of prospective principle thereof, and the necessity of there being one way or the other, based on the contents of the Gospels themselves. Now, the opposite target for an inbreeding, practicing kingdom, teaching ideology of inbreeding to the public, would mean at heart and at instinct the opposite, that upon whom they would target and fascinate on targeting. Because, like I said, the logistics of first woman coming from a man's rib is he was fucking herself as he was fucking her, and it's sexually sickening to think about, which is why you're one of these people to hate Charles Darwin, hate evolution, say that unbelievers are sick no matter what age they are, and then say Charles Darwin on his deathbed repented of the entire theology of theory of evolution. He left it to be built on further. But his humility in watching pollination of particular plants and been able to predict that, well, there must be birds with these types of beaks, with these that can gather pollinate. Anyway, now but the only type of, and this can be asked as a question without the suggestion of romance, a necessarily romantic relationship, a necessary copulative intercoursal relationship, or both, and both. Can a bisexual love a heterosexual male? Yes. Can a bisexual love a heterosexual female? Yes. Can a bisexual love a homosexual male? Yes. Can a bisexual love a homosexual female? Yes. Can a bisexual love a pansexual? Yes. Can a bisexual love a transsexual? Yes. So, if we want to have adult conversations about why you think it was right for the crucifixion to have even happened, it's either. Now, furthermore, knowing that so much of Mark's is duplicated in Matthew and Luke's, you're ruling out Matthew and Luke's, or you're pissing off Mark's, while noticing that John's is so phenomenally detached, even compared to those two. Either way, you're left with so yes, unless the doctrine of humankind beginning with one man, one woman is rejected outright, you'll have their ultimate convergent on general execution order 1, kill them and then tell a loving tale about them later. Tell many. That then also accounts for why at the level of instinct, despite the fact you had socio-political barriers and cultural barriers that were used as grounds for discrimination, then this is something of which a legal, someone who is out to protect laws, human rights, would have to have some wiser comprehension of, and therefore it's only excusable that it was on instinct of the person to have asked on dispatch, "Are you the King of the Jews?" to Jesus of Nazareth, to which he responded, "Well, you said it." That this was to be viewed as an unfair question was the accusatory question, and no confirmation or confirmative response was given either way. Means that since we know that inbreeding was a practice of kingdoms and an ideology they were producing, teaching, believing in their own bullshit is one easy way to see that they would draw so much attention to Jesus. Is what's accounting for why you'll be told there's a genetic family, there's a genetic disorder binding this particular family on this house on this street. And the description is in the exact same way as this principle to mental illness. That the genetics are the cause of mental illness. But genetics or drugs, although then the arguments do divided when they try to say, well, how come people are taking these same drugs with different effects? And then they'll go, well, that's when genes do factor in. It's hustling either way, because there's this phenomenal contradiction. And whether you're on the side of going, I'd rather the fable and the mythos of a book like John's, you've therefore got no true faith, no Lord, no Savior, no Christian, no hope in theology for it to be prospectively true. Any more than I'm going to, any more than I might think I'm going to Krypton. An unrecognized bisexual, now recognized, but the naturality of a bisexual individual's existence is obscured at all costs by by police as activists pharmacists who have handshakes with police as activists, or who the AFP pay for their land, their office rent. Yeah, no. So it's also believe in is, as I've talked about, conflated with to acknowledge the empirical existence of, or the existence of, as opposed to do you make a trust investment in, and that's conflated with religious talk of all kinds. So if they single out the question to me, do I believe in the Gospel of Mark? Then they're to specify a location, or they're to imply immediately that they're thinking about the crucifixion differential scattered throughout all of the Gospels in relation to one another. Because that is one thing amongst the religions that they are trying to reconcile. The crucifixion of Jesus is the one thing that's agreed on. It's just this title of Messiah isn't outside of Christianity. Combining all four Gospels is triangulationary activities with concealments. All four in the Bible. And they contest, plus they're unresolved on account of Jesus' anatomic male gender. There is, he's really bearing out the martyr for is the cause of their present day unresolved sexual health conflicts in accordance with their own definitions, and those definitions, retention to their own secrecy, or else open disclosure to their staff, and they will make such statements whilst you are an employee of theirs on a non-contractual and test and trial basis, for where they say we have to test you as to determine whether it's right for you to work here, and you work for them for 9 years, the vastly better part of 9 years. Now, yeah. These two men are extremely dangerous, but I also am convinced that, they don't believe homosexuals to be natural. They just think that they can make a stance for their rights, for the gay community's rights, as part of, in essence, to try and, I guess, gain notoriety. But what they do is impose it, and they'll do it while abducting, even. Well, after saying that they have run an AFP check on you. Now, when in fact, if court buildings are on land that their church lays claim to own, well, it's just complicating matters all the more for them as offenders. So no, I do not. I believe the Gospel of Mark exists, so we would not be talking about it. I do not believe that the Abrahamic God exists. I've talked about God as a non-anthropomorphic energy form. I have no commandments. This is not to say no ethics, although it is your Bible, religionists, that puts out the Ecclesiastes, the book of Ecclesiastes. Everything is utterly utterly meaningless, says the teacher. If Jesus was the ultimate teacher in the Bible, then he came to fulfill. Then he fulfilled, and so these people, in their own terms, need to suck Satan's cock in their own dreams. Though it's, who knows if that's what they want to. Perhaps some of them are incesting to their own subconsciouses that that's what they are doing when they mount their wives. But Mr. Cans and Mr. Tall are dangerous and are dangers to the coast, where they have shops, to the ACT, where they have shops, and you know, they want to be a chain with it on paper that the first woman came out of a man's rib, and Roger's main woman owning a bookstore called Paper Chain, and them running a chain of pharmacy shops. You understand, these men are criminal. I've said rights to life, health, expression, and movement. They are and to be true to thyself. Always, to the best of one's ability. I'm certainly undermedicated, and given what it was, that lines were blurred at the time as to whether they were trying to leave the consideration to my mind that, well, we're classing that you're using recreational pharmaceuticals, but as it hasn't thrown off your discipline or concentration while working, or we're giving you free prescription drugs while at work, but they're not fresh off the shelf, and that's not see, when you have a Webster Pack client's base of scripts that are cancelled, the patient is neither ripped off. The meds are held on the premises of the chemist, and the meds by formal protocol to go in the pharmaceutical waste bin. Now, so, and given what it is, I was allowed to consume whilst on duty. It proved health sustaining and health building. I've sustained injuries and had offences that I've endured at the hand of a workplace superior, while it been left to my wonderment as to whether and to what degrees or extent complicity, if not conspiracy towards this one particular relationship ending altogether offence on her behalf as Le Perp, was to involve either an order be belayed to her by Roger and Gary to Elizabeth Braddon of O'Connor, by Elizabeth Braddon to O'Connor of her own judgment of me during work times, or by conversions between Roger Markby, Gary Cairns, Elizabeth Braddon, and Cassandra Smith's. She is known to send an SMS to a phone with minimal 2G network, text and minimal hackability, a sex proposition, turn up and then make the most it's horrific. She'll reference, without you having disclosed it to her, information about the most. Yeah, she after these text messages, she will then approach your home, come in and then make a. See, one thing you do know too about when, and it's comparable to well, these are statements made against you, but they're incomplete. So, but they're completely inappropriate as incomplete, unless made to be so overly complete as to excuse any ambiguity or gaps, because she's posed a danger and a threat to more members of your family than you. And this was her in 2009. Now, it's I consider him a disgusting woman. Yeah. No interest. There'll be no friendship. There will be charges. But what they're doing, what's going on now, is chemical extortion, commensurate to conspiracy to kill, conspiracy to murder, via suffering you by the amount of chemicals. And they start with all the chatter, day one, it's policy. Day two, it's the law. Day one, it's Hippocrates' oath to do no harm. Day two, it's Hippocrates' oath to do no harm. Day fucking 59, it's Hippocrates' oath to do no harm. God bless.